Hey everybody, it's Joe Jonas hanging with Jag.
Hi, this is Carly Rae Jepsen, and you're listening to Jag.
Ryan Seacrest with Jag.
It's B.O.B. So much swag with my homie Jag.
And now, a look at this week in podcasting news. It's the Jag Show podcast.
Welcome in. I am John J. Gay. I frequently find myself at the intersection of my former career in radio and my new career in podcasting. And I've long said the only way for music radio to survive is by bringing personality back to differentiate itself from Spotify, Pandora, and other streaming services. We've actually seen some movement in the right direction lately. Some stations have gone back to two-person afternoon shows, and SiriusXM stations like Pop Rocks and Pop 2K and others have actually added more DJs to their stations. Now, sadly, Audacy, which is the second largest owner of radio stations in the country, formerly CBS, formerly Entercom, they actually eliminated a boatload of CHR or top 40 radio DJs at the end of last week. This after doing the same thing with country and alternative formats. Now, a handful of DJs are going to be on double-digit stations across the country. Now, I do have to throw in a disclaimer here. Middays for much of the country are going to be done by Julia, who's a friend of mine. I worked with Julia here at AMP Radio in Detroit. I consider her one of the most creative and talented people I worked with in my 15-year radio career. I think she's great. So if you're Julia, and the company comes to you and says, hey, we want to syndicate you nationally, that's a no-brainer. So no ill will towards her. She's doing what's right for her. And I can guarantee that Julia's show is going to have great content for the stations that she's on. Maybe even more compelling than the local DJs in the cases of some markets. But more radio people are out of work, and there's more connections to the local community that are lost because of it. For Audacy, the company, it's a great way to cut costs when you're moving all of your resources from radio to digital, but it does not bode well for the future of music radio. Okay, on to this week's podcasting news. There's a new social audio app that focuses on short-form content. It's called Racket. It appears to be part of a larger trend in media toward shorter stuff. Think about the recent success in the last year or two of TikTok and Instagram, short-form content. How does that translate to podcasting? Well, maybe shorter episodes are the way to go. You can always go too long in an episode, but can you really be too short? Back to the old radio cliche, leave your audience wanting more. Interesting article about this in The Verge, linked in today's show notes. Automatic, that's with two T's at the front. Automatic, the company that owns WordPress, which you may have built your website on, has bought podcast listening app Pocket Casts. That has me wondering if that's going to be maybe an easier integration for your website if you have a podcast with Pocket Casts and WordPress. So keep an eye on that. The official release from WordPress linked in today's show notes. If you still want to use Apple Podcasts as your listening app of choice, do yourself and all podcast creators a solid and upgrade yourself to the latest iOS version on your iPhone, your iPad, or any device. This should come with some fixes to these podcast download glitches where podcasts aren't downloading and you're not getting the shows you want and the creators are having their numbers be hurt by it. James Cridlin from Pod News, as always, is on top of it. He's linked in today's show notes. One more Jag show next week, then a break at the beginning of August while I attend Podcast Movement in Nashville. I hope to see you there. And finally, if you'll indulge me, two quick plugs. This week, I was the featured guest on the Do What You Love podcast from Las Vegas morning show host and recent ESPN play-by-play guy, Jeff Kirkshin. Jeff is a friend and just a great, solid, positive guy. We talked at length about all things podcasting, and it's a fun listen or watch. Got Apple, Spotify, and YouTube links in today's show notes. It's called the Do What You Love podcast. Highly recommend it. Also, I'm thrilled for Jag and Detroit's latest partnership with Tanner Friedman Strategic Communications here in Michigan and their client Care House of Oakland County. It's a place that helps victims of abuse. And the podcast is called It Shouldn't Hurt to Be a Child. Trailer up now. Episode 1 is coming soon. You can link to that in Apple or Spotify from today's show notes. As always, stay healthy and stay safe, and I will talk to you next week. Later.
If you like what you just heard, share The Jag Show with someone else who's interested in podcasts. You can also follow The Jag Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For help creating or improving your podcast, visit jagindetroit.com.